Shalom, guys. It's your girl Jedi, Empress Jedi, the Rabble Rouser. Thank you for watching the channel Black Enlightenment. Please do like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to hit that notifications button so that you always know when fresh content comes out, which, if I stay on my job, will be at least once a day. You should have a little snack, something, under 15 minutes. That should come out in the morning. Give you a little something to ponder throughout the day, and then randomly throughout the day, other stuff. But in the meantime, check out the playlist entitled The Culture. Those are original songs by me, and if you're interested in working with me, please do. And I love your feedback and, favorite song, hated it, whatever. Okay, so I want to talk about, I don't know a better term for it than what I'm going to give it, which is, and forgive me guys, I'm getting used to these new glasses, and so it's a little awkward for me. So I want to talk about what I am going to call toxic empathy, right? Or false empathy. So I've been looking into narcissism a lot lately, as I've shared with some of you, because I recognize I have a lot of narcissistic traits. It's interesting because I scored pretty high on narcissism tests, and I also scored just as high on empath tests. So maybe that means I'm pretty well balanced between the two. I don't know. Or maybe it just means I'm wacky, right? I don't know what it means. But I have been really poring over the narcissistic stuff because up until like earlier today, or the last couple of days since I've really been thinking about it, but really I kind of landed where I landed today. Like, oh, I need to talk about this. Up until then, I was on the team that basically sees empaths as like the good guys in the situation and narcissists like the bad guys in the situation, right? Like the empath is the person that's just feels the narcissist suffering and just enters in to help the suffering, and then the narcissist is like kind of bites the hand that feeds them, if you will, right? Like the narcissist uses the empath's vulnerability and exploits it, right? And so when you look into narcissism, that's all anybody is saying is they can show you what a narcissist is, and then they will tell you that, like, basically there's no redemption for a narcissist. They are what they are. There's no healing them. There's none of that. Once you discover that someone is a narcissist, just run for the hills. And so I've been contemplating that in a context where I believe in absolute redemption. I don't believe that there's anyone outside of the capacity for redemption who has a desire for redemption, right? I believe anyone with a desire for redemption and deliverance can be set free. And like when you look at these extremes, something like narcissism, you're talking about a spirit, right? And so you can break free from any spirit. Listen, baby, fasting and prayer and a desire for a change. If I can come out of the stuff that I came out of, I was a hot train wreck up until I hit like 32 or so, 32 or 33. So, given what I was for 30 years and versus what I am now, I've come a long way. And if we're striving for perfection, I'm going to live to be like 150 years old, because I got a long way to go still before I would call this anything like perfection. But having that kind of story, right, having such an extreme redemption story as my own, I really resist these world ideas about who is and who is not worthy of redemption. Okay? Now, I want to talk about what a narcissist is, right? So a narcissist, the way that it's being understood in the world is that a narcissist has suffered so much trauma that now they have holes in them that they only know how to fill by way of toxically feeding off of the good intentions of someone who desires to fill those holes. But because they're so empty, all they can do is make withdrawals. They have no capacity to make deposits because they don't even have a mental construct that allows them to see another person, to see their needs. And so there is no comprehension of the other person's needs. So when you can't comprehend another person's needs, of course you can't fulfill them. And because the narcissist is so self-absorbed, because they have so many holes, so much lacking in their spirit and their sense of self, there's so many holes that they just can't even, like if you're starving to death, right, it's hard to think about feeding someone else, right? And so, but what I know from being amongst poor people is that that's not what determines whether or not you're able to give. How much you have is not actually what determines whether or not you give, right? And so if the root of the narcissist is lack, right, is poverty of spirit, then there must be wealth building strategies that one can employ to come out of that poverty of spirit. And so let's just slide that to the side right now, okay? Just leave that there. And now let's look at what they're calling an empath, right? So they're saying that an empath is a person who is like the healer type, right? They read the room and then they are attracted to the people who have holes in them. And then they are like the charity workers of the spirit realm is the way that the world is explaining empaths now, right? So because they feel your suffering, they enter into your suffering, and then they go about remedying your suffering by giving of themselves to fill up your holes. They start plugging themselves into these holes that you have in yourself, right? Meeting your needs and all of this stuff. And so the way it's always presented as if those two are like at war, and that the only way for the empath to win is to disengage, right? And that as long as you are engaged, the narcissist will always win, because the narcissist has no boundary for, like, they have no limit on how much they'll take, and the empath has no limit on how much they'll give, right? As long as there is a need there, the empath will give, and as long as there is a source there, the narcissist will take. But I have been around long enough to know that there is such a thing as toxic empathy. I know people, enough people, to know that a lot of times it is these do-gooders who are actually preying on the impoverished, right? We actually have a term for that in social work, right? It's called poverty pimping, right? You're pimping out their poverty. So it's like this. You're rich, right? You are filthy rich. And so you go around where people are really, really poor. And because they're so poor, you actually don't have to do a lot to make them feel like you've done a lot, right? Like something like as simple as a backpack drive, right? You're rich, you buy 500 backpacks, and now suddenly you're like the best guy in the entire world to this poor community. But like for real, you spent less on all of the supplies that for that city, that you spent less on all their school supplies than you spent on your one kid's school supplies, right? Maybe you spent as much as you spent on your family if you really went like out there and got them fancy supplies. But usually they don't get them fancy supplies. Usually they go buy their kid the nice backpack, and then for the kids, the poor kids, they go buy a bunch of like Walmart cheap backpacks and like that, right? And so we would paint the picture of the empath as being this wealthy person, and they're so benevolent, and they go into these places where there's so much need, and they just give, right? And then we want to make them a hero. But I'm telling you, they're not heroes, guys. They're predators. There are people that are empaths, toxic empaths, who are going around looking for people with need, looking for narcissists, looking for people with holes in them and need. And then what they do is they make their identity, their hero identity is built on how much they give and how they never get anything back. But they're just going to give, and the sob story of the imbalance and all of that, which is why it is so hard to get them to disengage. You think that the narcissist is hard to get to disengage from that. The narcissist will walk away when you say, listen, no more, right? They're not going to they're not really a vampire. They're not going to they will in extreme cases, but most times all you have to do to get rid of the average narcissist is simply shut down the supply, right? And they will just go away. But these toxic empaths will not go away, right? Because they know that the need is there, so they will just keep showing up. And because the need is so great, they fully expect that you are always going to say, yes, please, I'll take it. And so they are building their identity on filling other people's needs, and that allows them to become a hero. So if they don't have someone who is not reciprocating back to them, then they can't be a hero. You can't be a hero in reciprocity, right? You can be an empath or a narcissist and have reciprocity if you're a healthy empath or if you're a healthy empath, or I would say a healing narcissist, right? But an extreme or toxic empath, the last thing they want in relationships is reciprocity, because reciprocity doesn't allow them to tell the hero story. They don't get to be the good guy in the relationship, right? You got to be more careful these days of these so-called good guys than the bad guys, because deception is real. These people prey on the vulnerability of the narcissist and then present it as if the narcissist is preying on them. It's like going and you're rich and you move into a poor community and you are always, loaning things and giving things and this and that, right? And then you develop this narrative of they're so needy, right? Excuse me, I think I don't trust this shirt. It's a little nipply. Okay, so they're so needy, right? Like, oh my God, I could never leave. I don't know what they would ever do without me. They would die if I left. Who's going to buy them backpacks for school, right? And then you can do things like, please, parents, don't come to more than one backpack drive in your city. Don't be greedy, right? So now you can make the person with the holes in them, now they're serving your ego in a way that allows you to ever more put yourself up on a pedestal, and shame them and embarrass them and go around telling this story of how good you are and how long-suffering you are to be able to tolerate all of this giving that you're doing, right? But in truth, if you're giving out of abundance, if you are a millionaire or a billionaire, right? Like when Walmart does these scholarships that they give away, like a $50,000, giving away three $50,000 scholarships in a year is a joke for a company like Walmart. They throw away more than that in groceries in a fiscal quarter of a year. They throw away more than that in expired groceries, right? So it's not like they're really giving anything significant or substantial. But because you don't have no money to go to college, to you, it's the biggest thing ever. And so now what happens is you are eternally indebted and ever grateful for Walmart for their enormous and life-changing contribution, right? So we have to really use discernment, guys. We can't be deceived out here in these streets, right? These perilous end time streets. We got to stay woke. There are no categories of dysfunction that are good guys and bad guys. Dysfunction is dysfunction. It's no better to be a toxic narcissist than it is to be a toxic empath. If you are empathetic, and it allows you to get a read on people's needs, and then you go and fill those needs, first thing I'm going to tell you, one clue that somebody is what I am calling a toxic empath, is that someone has to know about how much they're giving to these people. Like, they can't do it in anonymity, right? They can't do anonymity at all, because it doesn't quite fill the ego, right? Because the narcissist isn't going to feed their ego, because they don't even know how, right? They only know their own lacking ego, right? Their own suffering ego. They don't know how. And so then what this toxic empath is going to do is they're going to get two different highs. They're going to get a high off of feeding this narcissist, right? They get a high off of that, right? And then where the real high comes in, though, is in publicizing and rehearsing how much they've given to this narcissist, right? And how they couldn't possibly leave, because then who would take care of them, right? And so that's just different than what they're out there teaching. I can't see this thing good, y'all. These are bifocals, right? So like the computer is just too far for this part and just too close for this part. So it's like, I told you I'm trying to get used to these new glasses. They're kind of weird. But so you have to be watchful that you don't adopt these mindsets that are going to send you into error, whether you are on the narcissistic side or the empathetic side, right? In all actuality, if they were, if both were striving for healing, that actually would be a perfect combination. Like a person with an unlimited supply and a person with unlimited need are actually a perfect match. So if you're dealing with a true narcissist and a true empath, an empath is only channeling. They're only channeling the what they're giving out, right? They're getting a read, and then they're channeling and giving out and filling in those holes. That's an unlimited supply. It's an unlimited supply, right? And so if you're doing it from a healthy place, it wouldn't matter if the person was narcissistic, ever thanked you, ever cared, ever recognized you. None of that would really matter if you were truly operating as like in the giving sense, right? In this way that they want us to understand empaths. Like, oh, these poor giving empaths, they're not getting anything out of it. They're just giving. But that's not the case. They're getting as much out of it as the narcissist is. Because they're not actually giving from a divine place of just giving, because that's an unlimited supply. They're giving from a carnal place of ego, which needs the narcissist to need them so that they can be the hero and the victim. They get to be the hero and the victim, right? I moved here with these poor people and I give them jobs and they're stealing pencils from the office. And then their friends, oh my God, they're so ungrateful. That's a shame. You wonder why people don't have anything sometimes, but then things like this will show you, right? That's the kind of narratives that they start to spin. And so I just want you all to think about that when you are considering your relationships and you're recognizing that you're dealing with narcissists and you're like, oh, I'm an empath. Everybody thinks that's like some, like, I don't know why people think that's like some big badge of honor that to be an empath. Like, in truth, any healthy human being is an empath. Every healthy human being is an empath. That's how we're designed. We're designed to fill each other's holes, right? And so all of us, when we are in a place of emotional need, are narcissistic, because basically all a narcissist is doing is trying to fill holes. So if you, from a healthy perspective, where you either place boundaries of your giving, listen, I can give you this, but I can't give you that, or you say, listen, I will give, but then I will take a break until you reciprocate, right? Or you say, listen, I've got an unlimited supply. I'm just going to give, right? This isn't a give and take relationship. This is a give and give relationship, right? Or give and take in a different way, because I give, you take, right? If the relationship is dysfunctional, you cannot put all of that blame on the narcissist. And you cannot act like it is a dysfunction of the narcissist and not a dysfunction of the empath that would allow that relationship to stay out of balance. Right? So I just wanted to talk about that, right? Don't be poverty pimping these narcissists out here. Narcissists are wounded people. They have all of these holes in their soul. So they're really super vulnerable people. So if you don't know how to handle vulnerable people properly, keep your hands off of them. But in any case, keep your mouth off of them. Like the way that we have, and I'm not trying to say that there's not a narcissistic demon that is beyond personality and all of this stuff. But then there is also this false grace. Back to the synagogue of Satan and Paul. Freaking mosquito try to bite me in the face. Rude. Right? There's this thing with Paul where it's this false grace. Right? And a lot of you are running around here with this false warped grace, promoting this false warped grace and this sense of this image of yourself as some great savior. And you're just not. You're preying on narcissists' weakness. You're preying on the holes in them to put yourself into a position whereby giving little pittances, and you already know they're not really going to be grateful, because it's never going to be enough, because those holes, like without doing real spiritual work, those holes without like going and doing all kinds of work, you're going to have to forgive people in your past. You're going to have to forgive yourself. You're going to have to get angry with people in your past that you inappropriately forgave. All of this kind of stuff you're going to have to do to fix the holes in you, which when there's too many holes, you become a narcissist, right? Well, a lot of that same work you're going to have to do if you are one of these false empaths or toxic empaths or, savior types, right? You savior types have to do the same kind of work that the narcissists have to do to get yourselves together so that you can stop preying on them. Because what would some of you do if you didn't have someone in your life who was just who you could complain and cry about taking everything from you? Right? Some of you so-called empaths are not really empaths. You're just toxic complainers. And you find people who you can put into I didn't mean to say toxic complainers. I meant to say, God, it's so weird how I'm losing words, guys. I'm so glad I'm making videos, because I don't know in how many years it'll be before I just can't even use language anymore. It's getting weird. But what's the word that I'm, like extreme, right? Like an extreme empath or whatever, or you guys are like these savior types. You guys are running around looking for people with big enough holes in them that you know you could never fill, so that you can have something to say that you've done for other people and didn't get anything back. I am not trying to say that there are not cases where empaths, the fact is empaths always get taken advantage of, because we're filling in holes all the time, right? You're always filling in holes. And then once people get those holes full, they typically don't have like a need for you, because once those holes are full, they've learned reciprocity. And now you're not even prepared for reciprocity because you don't know how to operate in reciprocity. Because if you knew how to operate in reciprocity, you wouldn't be married to a narcissist. You would be married to someone healthy. You'd be married to someone balanced, right? Both of these are like imbalances, right? So, and that's a difference in what Paul and Yeshua taught. Paul's doctrine of like everybody's your friend and save everybody, pray for everybody, forgive everybody, let everybody on the team, everybody gets a trophy. That's Paul. Yeshua was like, a chick came up to Yeshua. He more or less called her a bitch, guys. He called her a dog. She came up to Yeshua and wanted a healing. He's like, I ain't giving my children's bread to the dogs. Bounce. Right? Now, some of you empaths, you couldn't imagine saying that to someone. Well, if you discern that somebody is not worth your gift, that's an appropriate response. Get up out of here. You ain't built for this. Now, she proved herself worthy with her response. She proved herself worthy. How? Because she proved to be wise and humble. She said, even the dogs lick the crumbs from the bottom of the table, sir. I just want a little crumb. That's all I want. Right? So he says, you know what? You solid enough. You can get that blessing. Right? So I just really hope that we will start to come into an understanding of these things and not go from one dysfunction to the next, right? All this new agey stuff, everybody, you got to be a little bit careful when everybody is saying the same thing out in the world about something, especially when it comes to like sociological stuff or psychological stuff. When the world has like a new favorite tagline, you should probably really investigate it and what it is and what it looks like. Because if you can think of how those all of those charities that go into Africa and all of the foster cares and orphanages and children's homes and all of this stuff, if you know what I know about them, which is that these do-gooders go in and decimate our communities. They have their way with our children. They steal our resources. They emasculate our men, right? They do all of this in the name of doing good and you know, solving poverty and all of this. And when they can be there for 20 years, UNICEF can be somewhere 20, 30 years, and there's no positive impact on poverty. Nobody's any better for it. But they're a charity. They're a do-gooder, right? But nobody's any better for you being in Uganda for 35 years. You've had like an office there, and nobody's not poor now that you touched. They're all still poor. Their grandkids are still coming for backpacks. Clearly, you're not there to help solve anything. Where are the people that don't need backpacks since you've left? If you are operating in a healthy way and you go to tend to people with backpacks, or people that need backpacks, by at least a few backpack drives, they ought to be doing a fundraiser to get backpacks on their own, right? They ought to be doing something whereby they don't need you to keep giving. You should be giving them tools. You should be giving them tools to solve their own problems. And so you so-called empaths who aren't offering any tools are not helping. And you're not trying to help. You're bloodsuckers. You are bloodsuckers. And then you want cookie for it. You want a cookie for your blood sucking. You want the narcissist to get a lashing, but you want a cookie. But I see you guys. I see you. I see you poverty pimps out here preying on these poor narcissists with all these holes in them. People in extreme cases of narcissism are deeply, deeply wounded people, and you're exploiting them in the name of being empaths. And you won't disengage because you need a source. And that's why you won't put up boundaries, and that's why you won't draw limits. Because you know that if you do that, then who are you going to tell everybody you saved this week? Who are you going to tell everybody you sacrificed yourself for this week if you have reciprocity? So I hope that this blessed somebody. I know it's a little controversial. I'd love you guys' feedback on this, okay? But look at me under, wait, I can't, look, I don't know which part of the glasses to look. 30 minutes. Perfect. Y'all, stay blessed, stay up. Y'all be magnified, glorified, and praised. Catch y'all later.